Excellence in Leadership series, self-awareness. Hey, my dear, it's leadership development coach Kathy Archer. Thank you for joining me today, whether you are on live or whether you are watching the replay. I am grateful that you have taken time out of your day to join me and hopefully learn a few things about what you need to learn. First thing I want to share is I'm super excited. I am the author of best-selling book, Mastering Confidence, and I've been working on the audio version of that over the last few weeks, and it is getting closer and closer to being done. So if you've read my book, or if you haven't read my book because you haven't had time, but want to, you might be interested in the audio version. So keep an eye out on my Facebook page, and if you are on my newsletter list, keep an eye open in the emails that I send, because it will be coming soon. So let me just look at my notes because I want to make sure that I cover everything that I want to cover with you. First, I'm going to share this into my Confident Women Leaders group. So I know that we are all crazy busy. We are running around chasing fires, solving everybody else's problems, and never getting to the problems we want to deal with or the things that we want to do proactively. I give you both the inner and outer tools to turn that around, to move from surviving to thriving in both leadership and life. And the Confident Women Leaders group is a group of women who want that, and maybe that's you too. So I'm going to pop over here and share this. Waiting for internet to load. There we are. Sharing. Share in a group. Confident Women Leaders group. Post. So Confident Women Leaders Group, I'm just going to try one more thing here quickly. Let's see if this works. I'm going to share in an event. See if that works. Let's see. Excellence in leadership, self-awareness. Ooh, it did. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting real excited here. Now I have to shut the internet off on the other computer, and we are ready to roll. So Confident Women Leaders Group is a private Facebook group where we are a bunch of women who are struggling perhaps in their leadership, or maybe excelling but have been through humps and bumps, but want to connect to a group of other women going through similar challenges. That's what Confident Women Leaders Group is all about. I will share the link after today's session, so if that's something you're interested in, you can join that. If you are on today, put a note in the chat box so that I can hear you. If you're following the replay, let me know that you joined and just put a note in the chat box. Give me a thumbs up. If this information is helpful to you or to any other woman that you know, please share it. One of the sort of things that I get on my soapbox about often is we should not have to do this alone. And yet, many, many, many women leaders feel isolated, alone. They feel like they are the only one going through it. They feel stuck, and they shouldn't have to feel that way. So please, if this is helpful to you, share the information, share it in your news feed, share it in a private message, share it at your staff meeting, whatever. If it's helpful to you, please share. Reminder that I've been doing this for a while. Each of these sessions has a guide that goes with it, so you can find the guide for today's session and all of the past sessions at silverrivercoaching.com/guides. Today's no exception. I think that's all I want to tell you as we get going. If you have questions as we go along, please ask them. This is for you. So interactive is great. If you have questions watching the replay, post them in and I will come back and answer them after. We have been talking for the last several weeks about the skills and traits and qualities you need to excel in leadership. And I've been using the Leadership Circle as a guide. It's a tool that I use with the ladies that I work with, both in my Women with Grit program, as well as just some ladies who aren't in the program who want to sort of get this assessment. And so this is the manual that comes with it. The book that goes along with it is called Mastering Leadership. It's by Bob Anderson, a masterful man who has pulled all of this information together, put it into this tool that helps us get a sense of, how do I currently show up in my leadership? What's the impact I'm having? How do the people around me see me? How do I see myself in relation to what Bob has sort of pulled together as these core traits of effective leaders? And, you know, we've been going through them over the last few weeks to really look at what are the skills and traits you need to excel in your leadership. So we started with achieving. If you are leading effectively, you are taking your team somewhere. You're not staying stagnant. You're not stuck. You're not, not growing. You're growing. You have a vision. You're taking your team somewhere. And so as a leader, you need to have those skills that help you achieve high results, but not at the cost of your people. But you have to be able to make decisions and be decisive. You have to see the bigger picture. You have to move forward and take your team forward. So we talked all about achieving. Then we talked about systems awareness. And systems awareness was having that broader, longer perspective on things and seeing how everything is interconnected. The challenge that many of us leaders have is this head down approach where we're only focused on the fire in front of us, the problem of the day, the crisis that's happening. And we need to sort of lift up, have that broader view around what else is happening around us, see how everything's intermixed, and also see that longer perspective. And so that was systems awareness. Then we moved into relating. Relating is all about building those relationships with your employees, with your team, and at the same time as achieving those high results. And I think sometimes we get stuck where if I want to be the nice guy, if I want to have a good relationship with my team, I can't push them too hard. I can't expect too much of them. As soon as I do that, my relationship falls apart. It's a balance, no doubt about it. So we talked about all of those skills under relating. And then last week, we talked about authenticity, courageous authenticity. And this was that whole piece around being yourself, knowing what your values are, knowing what you believe in, knowing what hill you will die on, and having integrity to follow those. So having this list of things, but also living that list. Courageously being yourself. Who are you at your core? Being able to say what you want to say when you want to say it, not being quiet, not playing political games, and not sort of putting on these masks and facades, having high integrity leadership. And that is the number one thing people are looking for in their leadership. They want to know that they can trust you. They want to know that you walk your talk, and they want to know what to expect. That's that courageous authenticity. That's having integrity in your communication. So that was what we talked about last week. So today we are moving on to self-awareness. So this is the last of the sort of overall skills that the leadership circle profile talks about as being the skills of high effective leadership. That didn't quite come out right, but you know what I mean. So grab my notes, because you know I always have notes along with me as I'm talking about this. Self-awareness. That's balance and composure that result from highly developed self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and ongoing learning and development. So we're coming back to what I talk about often is that emotional awareness, understanding what's going on inside of you, being clear. And what this whole area of self-awareness is really talking about is the ability to do not only the ability, but the active involvement in personal and professional development. Where many leaders struggle is, they put their own personal development on the back burner because, there's only so many dollars and we need to make sure the staff have the basic training. So that's half the battle. When they do jump into any training, it's typically professional development training, which is we're looking at the skills, basic skills around leadership. You'll take some management training. You might learn how to use Excel spreadsheets. You're going to learn how to do strategic planning, all of those things, which are important. Don't let me tell you they're not important. Those are critical, and those are part of this. But the piece that leaders often miss is the personal development, the inner growth. We often see that as outside of leadership. That's not something I do on my work time. That's something I do in my own time. And I'm here to tell you, my dear, that you definitely need to be doing it. Whether you do it on your own time or work time, that's entirely up to you. I encourage it on work time. And I think you should promote it with your staff as well. We need to understand who we are, what makes us tick, why our buttons get pushed here, and how we can, motivate ourselves and understand all that's going on inside of us. That's an incredibly important part that many of us miss. It's the self-awareness piece to understand who am I, how do I show up in leadership, and how do I feel that I'm most authentic there. I mean, we just talked last week about authentic leadership. You got to spend the time doing this inner work to know who you are so that you can show up authentically. So there are 4 components in the self-awareness chunk of the Leadership Circle profile. And just a side note, if any of this is of interest to you, I'll put the link in after for the Leadership Circle profile so you can see what the tool is all about, how it works. There's a great video on the site that gets into it more. And if it's something you want to talk to me about, just message me and I can get into more detail on it. So the first component of self-awareness is the selfless leader. This is all about servant leadership. If you've never heard that term, Google it, servant leadership. It's certainly something that's important for you to know about. I know for me, it was something that was thrown around and I didn't fully understand it until much, much later. But basically what servant leadership is, or the selfless leader, is when you're pursuing others, sort of pursuing that service to others over your self-interest. Many of us get caught up in climbing the career ladder, in sort of doing what we need to do to prove ourselves, to be the best, to shine. Important stuff. Don't get me wrong. You need to focus on being your best self, doing your best, and advancing, especially if you're a leader. If you've got those skills, that God-given talent in you of leadership, you should be using it and you should be excelling at it. And we also need to focus on service to others. And so when you are that selfless leader, you are more focused on sort of that bottom line of serving your client, your community, your customer, your staff, that it's not all about you looking good and you getting the credit. Much of this is about sharing leadership and sharing the accolades that you get. You know, when you do well at accreditation, when you win a new contract, when you make some significant difference or some not significant, but just tiny difference with the client, share that excitement, share that celebration. When you have the opportunity to take on a new project or do different things, or you see a skill in someone else, give them some responsibilities around leading within the team. Share the leadership. You don't always have to have control. You don't always have to have your finger on the pulse. If you are doing some of that stuff we talked about last week around relating, you're seeing the strengths in your team and you're growing those strengths. That comes into play here by sharing leadership. So that might be something that you want to think about. When you are focused on selfless leader, when you are high in this score on your Leadership Circle profile, people will often see you as humble. You don't brag, you're not arrogant, you're not out there pushing yourself forward. You're stepping back, and in many ways, although you're the leader and the one who sort of, you know, moved things forward, people might not recognize that because everybody took part in it and everybody's excited about it and everybody's sharing in the glory of it. And that's that humbleness coming out in you. That's that servant leader. Selfless leader is not having the desire to be first or best or always wanting control. If you're looking for ways to become a more selfless leader, look for ways to collaborate. Focus on your mission and vision. Come back to why do you do the work you do? Really connect into your why. That will help you be a more selfless leader. That was the first one. So we're talking about self-awareness, excellence in leadership. How do you become the best leader you can be? We've been talking about all of these skills connected to the Leadership Circle profile. Moving on to balance. So, I mean, we all know what balance is, and it's exactly what it sounds like. But there's one component I think that we often miss. In the middle of tension and stress, both work and life, can you maintain a healthy balance as well as continue with high performance? And that's the key to this category. It's not only about being all zen-like, you know, and calm and, you know, making sure you do your yoga and go for your walk when things are good. It's about, can you do that when things are crazy busy? Can you do that and maintain those high standards and reach that quality that you're looking for? Can you continue to balance work and life? Can you continue to take care of your health? Can you continue to do all of that and keep things moving forward? So to truly do this, what you need to have, sorry, I gotta grab my notes. Make sure I'm flipping to the next page. Adequate time for reflection, a commitment to focusing on both your diet and your physical health. So again, this isn't just emotional balance. This is physical components as well, family components. You need to pay conscious attention to your well-being. I was rubbing my husband's shoulders last night, and he made a comment, and I wrote about this in my book as well. He made a comment about he didn't realize how sore his shoulders were until I started massaging them. That's the truth for many of us in life. We don't realize how sore we are, how hungry we are, how exhausted we are, how angry we are, how out of balance we are until something critical happens. And that's the piece that we need to work on in this area. And so it requires time management skills. It requires lots of self-awareness, that checking in. How are my shoulders? How is my level of exhaustion? How am I feeling around my health in terms of eating and sleeping and spending time with my family and loved ones? Am I really balanced? And so there's kind of two questions that you need to ask. Can you handle stress and pressure well? And then can you perform in those high stressful times? So you might want to work on your balance during some of the easier times, get some things in place so that you create routines, so that you create habits, so that when those crazy busy times come, you're still able to do this. If you are struggling with burnout and stress, you are not balanced. If your personal life is taking a hit, you are not balanced. Likely what's happening is you are putting in too much time and too much effort into work. And so what you need to do is step back and ask yourself, am I being too intense? Am I working too hard? And what do I need to do to regain balance in my life? So again, we're talking about increasing your self-awareness. Just finished talking about composure. Before that, we talked about being a selfless leader. We're now moving on to the third component, composure. In the midst of conflict and high tension, can you remain composed? Yeah. You know, again, if you've read my book, the very first chapter talks about a situation where I walked into a little bit of a stressful staff meeting, and somebody made a few comments that poked some of my buttons, and I didn't react as I probably wished I'd had. And I think that's the challenge for many of us. When something happens, when we are stressed, when we are struggling, when somebody puts us under the gun, what we tend to do is fall back into that reactionary mode. And often it's not very mature, it's not very polite, and it's not very composed. Composure is when we're able to, despite all of that, maintain our emotions, right? Not that we can't get angry, not that we can't be hurt, but how do you respond with those feelings and emotions in a way that's actually helpful in moving your team forward? So again, this is all that emotional intelligence stuff again. It's about keeping your perspective, staying relaxed, being able to be decisive, handling stress and pressure well. It is not becoming hostile and sarcastic under stress. It's not withdrawing. We were talking in our Confident Women Leaders community this morning about toxic work environments. And one of the tendencies that we have when we sort of, move from that place of having a great work environment to things aren't going so well to things are going really bad is we tend to withdraw and pull back. I did that several times in my career. One in particular, not only did I pull back, I started to, disengage. I didn't have lunch with the team. I would make sure that I went for a walk at lunch so I didn't have to interact with them. But then it got so bad that I actually moved offices so that I didn't have to see them. And most of my interactions were on the phone or via email. And that was a way of me stepping back because I couldn't handle myself. I was afraid I was going to cry, I was going to yell, I was going to fall apart in some way. I wasn't handling my emotions well. And so composure is that ability to handle ourselves under stress. Our tendency under stress is often to regress. So when things are good, we can be polite and have compassion and we can, feel empathy for other people. But man, oh man, when things get tough, what's our tendency to do? Bam, 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 separate from person, start focusing on task, got to get things done, and we miss something really, really big there. So we have to be careful about that. It takes an incredible amount of inner work to get to that stage where you can manage those emotions and stay composed. And so that's what you have to do, truly, is increase your emotional intelligence. And I've talked about that again and again. I'll maybe try and find some of the links in my blog around emotional intelligence, but it's the critical component here. Tons of self-awareness. And, bring this back full circle to the beginning. I talked about the personal and professional development. Professional development is going to give you the skills you need. Personal development is going to give you the awareness you need. And it's that awareness that's going to help you. You can take all of the communication courses in the world. You can take conflict resolution. You can take crucial communication. You can take all of that stuff. And you can have those skills in your back pocket. You can have that in your toolbox. But if you haven't done the inner work to understand what buttons get pushed, why they get pushed, what that feels like when they get pushed, you cannot use those tools. I mean, just a simple metaphor. I watch, sometimes my husband used to watch Carver Kings, and we would watch those guys make those amazing, log cabins, but take a log and turn it into a sculpture, an animal, a person, or something. You can hand me a big chainsaw, but there is no way I can work that thing because I haven't learned how to work it. And so that's the piece that I'm talking about here. You have the tools, you have the skills. I know you do. I know you've probably taken a ton of training. But if you haven't learned how to use that from the inside out, it's almost useless to you. In fact, it can be more damaging than good because you're not understanding how it all works inside of you. That's the self-awareness piece. Sorry, I got off on a little tangent there. So which comes into the fourth component. So we talked about, sorry, I'll come back and regroup here. Self-awareness, 4 components to self-awareness. Selfless leader, having that balance and maintaining composure. The fourth one is personal learner. Do you have that interest in learning? I've talked about this before with Carol Dweck's work with mindsets. You either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Do you believe you can learn and grow and develop more? Yes, it may take work. Yes, it might take a bit of effort. That's a growth mindset. And that's kind of what this personal learner is all about. Do you do all you can to reach your potential? And so that's growing your self-awareness, increasing your wisdom. And wisdom is not just knowledge, but applying the knowledge. So that's that having the knowledge, applying it is the wisdom, being self-aware and having those insights. Again, this requires you to go inside. So people who score high in this personal learner category do a lot of that inner self-reflection. They seek to know themselves. What are my strengths? What are my values? What buttons get pushed and when? What's the hill I will die on? What's the vision I'm trying to create? Why do I do the work I do? What's happening inside my body when I'm angry, when I'm feeling calm? What are the sensations telling me? How can I control my thoughts better instead of having runaway thoughts that get me into trouble? That's all this inner personal learning. So you have to seek to know yourself, welcome feedback from others, seek out feedback from others, be committed to that continual self-evaluation and other evaluation. And again, humility comes into play here. You cannot sort of do this work without being able to acknowledge where you made a mistake, how that showed up, the impact it had, and where you can kind of go from there. The other day, I just had a conversation with my husband. We'd had 2 or 3 incidences over the past few weeks where we'd gotten to a little bit of a tangle, and I had to step back and go, what is going on here? And so I come back to journaling. I come back to some of the inner work. And yeah, right away, I was able to pinpoint something that happened in each of these 3 incidences. That was incredible learning for me. The catch then, and this is the harder part, is then to go back to my husband and say, hey, here's the awareness I have. apologize for the reaction I had, and then ask for help to change that in the future. That's a growth that's a journey that I've been on for years. It's not something that I would have first had the self-awareness, then been able to have the conversations to apologize, and then third, ask for help in the future. That's not something I would have been able to do 3 or 4 years ago. That's something that's taken lots of growth over time. I can do that with my husband because I trust my husband. I would have still, even after all the work I've done, have a harder time doing that in a group I was involved in a workplace environment with another colleague. But I would go there now because I've developed that courage to try that. And it takes time to get there. And so that's what you need to know about this personal learner is it's an ongoing journey. It is a life journey. And that's what you're committing to when you're committing to being a personal learner, is committing to constantly, continuously for the rest of your life, coming back, learning, growing, taking what you've learned, applying it, gaining the wisdom and insight, applying it again in your life, taking some more knowledge in, and just forever and a day doing that. You'll know when you're struggling with this, when you start to feel stuck and stagnant, perhaps angry, bitchy, bitter, when you've lost that zest for life, lost that zest for your job, you probably have stopped learning and growing. When you stop having that connection to other people, when you miss something, when you notice something's missing, you probably need to come back to going to take a new course, reading a new book, watching some webinars or trainings, or listening to podcasts, or watching a TED Talk, something to spark something in you. It also might be that you need to come back and look inside. What's going on? Why am I feeling like this? What's happening? That's that inner growth. So to increase your personal learner score requires, again, a ton of self-reflection. So reading, reflecting, journaling, meditating, and praying. Yeah, you'll notice that some of these are spiritual practices. Much of this personal learner stuff, much of all of leadership, is really a spiritual kind of journey. It's understanding who you are and who you are in the bigger world. You know, what's expected of you, what's your path, what's your life's purpose, what's your why, where can you have your biggest impact, what sparks you, where's your passion, what lights you up. That's what you're looking for. And you got to go inside to find that. When you connect to that, and when you authentically, as we talked about last week, come out and use that in your leadership, you're going to shine, you're going to excel, you are going to kick some amazing butt. So think about how you can do that. Think about where that's missing in your life. This week's guide, and again, I said it is at silverrivercoaching.com/guides, asks you to develop the courage to start developing yourself as a leader from the inside out. And so what I've done is there's a list of 20 some, not questions, but statements that you can go through and kind of go, does that fit for me? Such as, I make time for reflection. I seek out feedback about myself. I give myself time to explore new things. So there's a list of 20 some questions that you can, or comments or statements that you can go through, and you can go, where do I land on this? How do I fit in with this? So that's at silverrivercoaching.com/guides. You can get this sheet, go through it. And then what I've asked you to do is commit to something. What is it that you need to commit to that is going to increase your self-awareness in the coming weeks? Because that's the whole point in this. If you're not going to do anything, if you're not going to take time to step back, work on yourself, then you're going to just continue on this same path or journey that you've been on. If you want to make some of the changes in both how you feel and how you lead, you got to commit to doing some change. So come back to the guide sheets, go back through the Facebook Lives that I've been doing for the last few weeks. Again, we've been going through the skills, the traits, the things you need to do to excel in your leadership. We've talked about all of the things out of the Leadership Circle profile, which is a tool that I use with the women in my Women with Grit program, to get a sense of how do you show up currently, what's the impact you're having, how do other people see you, how do you see yourself, and then maybe have some direction about what you want to do to grow yourself, develop yourself, make some changes. If you have any questions, pop them in below. I will answer them now. But yes, the skills that we've been talking about, I'll go through them again quickly. Authenticity, so being your courageous, authentic self, leading with integrity. Relating to others, so having good communication, seeing the potential in others, growing that, working and collaborating, developing other people. Systems awareness, so making sure that you have that wider, broader, longer view so that you are lifting your head up, seeing what's happening around you. And then achieving, making sure that you are looking to achieve those high results, that you are getting somewhere. And then today we've just been through self-awareness. So do this stuff, guys. Make sure that you are doing the work to grow yourself, to identify the traits, the skills that you need to work on as a leader, and then figuring out what you're going to do about that. Create your plan. In the beginning of the year, I did a whole series on looking at creating your learning plan, looking at setting aside some goals and stuff you want to develop. Go back to those and see what you need to do. If you're interested in the Leadership Circle profile, let me know. I will also put the link in after to the Women with Grit program. It will be starting later in September. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to the link and check it out. And there's a button there that you can push to be notified when we're going to run that again. Again, any questions you have, please ask them, whether you're on live now or you're watching the replay. I will answer them. Go back and get your guide so that you can work through this. Again, I cannot stress the importance. The most effective leaders, the most powerful leaders, the leaders who feel good when they're doing their job are the ones that come back and do the inner work. They're the ones that look at, who am I? How do I show up in my leadership? What's the impact I'm having? And what's the impact I want to have? And how can I work to get that impact? And the Leadership Circle profile is one of the tools we use to get there. There's a ton of other stuff that we can use. I've given you guide after guide, week after week, silverrivercoaching.com/guides. You can go and see all of those ones that I've been through. And there's links there to watch any of the past Facebook Lives as well. If this has been helpful, please share it. Share it in your own newsfeed. Share it with privately with a lady you know who needs this information. We should not have to do this alone, my dear. We should be supporting each other in our leadership. We need to be growing together. Too many women are out there struggling and feeling all alone and isolated in their leadership. We're in this together. Let's support each other. Let's be there for each other. And let's make sure that we work on growing ourselves and growing other people. Thanks for listening today. Again, I will see you all next week. Thanks, my dear. Bye-bye.